This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's pod. This week in review of January 30th, 2022. I should probably say January 21st, Phil, right? Because we usually have it on the Saturday. That was my bad. For those that are watching, might have noticed that we have a guest with us this week. It's the wonderful Mr. Scott Gustin of Twitter fame. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining our show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So in case people don't hover around Diz Twitter and don't see you, who are you? And
I'm not
why
sure.
Are you here today?
That's a loaded question. I'm not sure who I am, right? I hadn't quite figured it out yet.
Well, most importantly, what got you posting or tweeting about Disney and other things?
Yeah, so I've worked in news, broadcast news, for basically all of my professional life, on the digital side mostly. Mm-hmm. And, I've had an interest in Disney in my personal life. And then I would say it was maybe like 2014, 2015, when I kind of allowed the two to cross. I moved from a more local position here in North Carolina to a national editor job, and then started, just trying to find my way into covering events at Disney and finding national angles for stories. And then I ended up with a team, an editorial team that worked on our national wire at Tribune, and then I moved to Nexstar, and it's just kind of rolled from there. Made some good contacts at Disney, and I'm always following from afar kind of what's going on with the parks. And then I try to jump in when I feel like I can actually contribute to the discussion. So
yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that Phil, I don't know if I'm speaking for you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like one of the things I really appreciate about you on my Twitter feed is there's not a lot of crazy hot takes running all over the place, which is going to be one of the things that we're talking about. It's usually great information, great opinion or insight just from a historical point of view, or I guess what's actually happening, not like, oh my God, the world's on fire. The signs aren't going to be purple anymore. And
I don't think, and I'm pretty confident when I say, I don't really think anyone cares what it is that I think. So what I feel like I can contribute is, facts to what everyone else thinks and cares about, if that makes sense. I'm not always trying to start a discussion, but I feel like sometimes I can jump in and maybe get some answers or better explain what's going on with a situation versus declaring that because I think something about X that it's suddenly important.
Right.
I have never had an interest in that. I don't really think anyone wants that. So I'm more trying to let other people decide the narrative and what is going to be discussed, and then try to contribute what it is that I can contribute.
Awesome. I know a lot of people appreciate that, and Phil and I are two of them.
Oh yeah, getting the facts and getting them usually pretty quick and ahead of time, but like also how you respond to people when they have questions like, hey, what about this angle, or what do you think of that? You like you say, you can dig it up and try to answer it with facts, not just like, oh, this is what I think or whatever. So I think that a lot of people appreciate that. Yeah,
I mean, it's what I like. It's what I like to consume. So I try to contribute to that. I know it's not always what's going to get the biggest attention and the clicks, the baiting, that you can get on tweets. I can't even say clickbait because I'm not linking to a site. I'm not trying to push anything, but just the engagement bait that you sometimes see on social. I'm not chasing that. So
Well, just to add some clickbait of our own, please remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or give us that 5-star rating on iTunes. We really appreciate it. We want to give a shout out to our new Discord member, Vito, who hopped on board this week. Thank you for joining the community. Hope you stay engaged and have a good time. And quick shout at the beginning of this episode, just so we have it, the Disney Comeback Index is now sitting at a ripe high 79.33. A couple points digging up for some restaurant openings and stuff like that. We're inching back slowly and slowly. All right, so we have a bunch of topics we kind of wanted to line up, and this is kind of just like a rolling kind of trend that we've been talking about over the weeks. The first one kind of hit some kind of newsiness is one of the quarterly reports for Comcast popped up on how much money they're spending over at Universal, and that Epic Universe is going to be popping up in 2025. So, with that being said, Scott, in your opinion, what are we looking at on a Disney versus Universal setting the stage for the next couple of years? What does the landscape look like?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably not very interesting. I just don't think there is a whole lot of. I don't know if Disney is as concerned as we think they should be about what they're doing.
Well, that's the story right there.
Yeah. I mean, I think Disney very much wants Universal to start building on Epic Universe as soon as possible. I mean, it's good for Disney for them to do this. It's going to bring that many more people to the area. I mean, it's an old point, but it's just always valid. It's not that interesting, but that's it's just the truth. I mean, everything that I hear, Disney pays attention, but they're not in any way saying, well, we have to do X in response to anything that's happening over there. They're paying attention to it. They want to be aware. Mm-hmm. The people that are the most interested in what happens at Universal are the wonderful people at Disney that use all the surveys that go out to guests. They're really the people that are most aware and curious about why people are going there. So they're trying to glean a little information, but I don't see a situation anytime before it opens where Disney says we need to have this to open before. I'm sure they'll want something to open in 2025. Maybe that'll be Tron. Maybe they'll say Tron for 25.
I don't know if you're looking at my show notes, because that was my next point. Is we're saying that or at least I'm saying Disney should be somewhat worried, at least from the reaction. I mean, right now they have a glut of people that want to go. That's just kind of like a backlog of guests. But you said that they should be maybe paying a little bit more attention, and they can't build a roller coaster in 6 years that they've already built. So should Disney be worried, or are you hearing anything about Universal that could make it a game changer for those parks?
I don't think Disney has to be worried. Should they be? I mean, maybe. I mean, I wish they personally, I wish they were. I wish they would see it as a reason for them to put more money in the parks. I just don't think that they're to that point.
That's like what everybody wants, right? They want them to see Epic Universe and be like, oh, well, we got to build a fifth gate, or we have to do this, because then that means more stuff for all of us to do. But it doesn't seem like that's going to happen, or at least not anytime soon.
It's wish casting, I guess, is like the term, and whether you're trying to wish it into existence, when I hear and see nothing that makes me think Disney is that concerned. But I mean, if there's some big IP that they land that they haven't yet announced, other than Super Mario and I think was it How to Train Your Dragon, are like the two biggest pillars for Epic Universe. Unless there's some other shoe to drop where Universal unveils they've got something else for it that might come out of left field that might push Disney towards talking about a fifth gate. But I just think that's dreamland scenario for Disney fans to be, or theme park fans to be thinking that that's going to happen. So
I don't think Disney's going to be making a fifth gate in Orlando anytime soon, and I don't think they're going to be threatened to lose like the number 1 or 2 spot in the area. But I think with Epic Universe, there's a potential for some major competition just for the length of stay. right? Phil had a vacation last year for the 50th, and he had a split stay between Universal and Disney. And there's more and more people exploring. Oh, I only maybe could do 2 or 3 days at Disney, do 2 or 3 days at Universal as well. And I think you're going to see that more and more. My only thought is, as that's happening, what is Disney going to do? I mean, we don't know at this point. I mean, the park could be an utter disaster, which probably wouldn't, but that'll affect dollars spent on a daily basis because there's not as many days stuck at Disney. So that bubble is basically popping, I think, in the next couple of years. That being said, with some of the additions, one of the big things that everybody's talking about is the lightning lanes and the individual lightning lanes and Genie Plus. How awful it is. I see a lot of we had Matt on, the guy behind the DCI, and he enjoyed it because he didn't mind spending the extra couple bucks for it. But we keep seeing a lot of negativity surrounding it. The biggest impact, I think, is the gamification of the parks. As planners, Phil and I, we love the planning, the kind of the gamification of it. But once we're there, it's no longer a thing you have to do. It's already planned. It's already set. We just enjoy ourselves. Scott, what do you think about the quote-unquote gamification of the parks? Now you have to wake up every day at 7. You have to do the boarding groups, all that type of stuff. That the park's trending in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it, but I don't mind it when everything works the way that it should. Like, I don't mind waking up. I would prefer not to have to wake up at 7 a.m. as long as everything from that point works the way that it should.
Sure, of course.
And the frustration for me is not really the things I have to do in the park as part of Genie Plus and Lightning Lane. It's just that even that, then things not working the way they should is the thing that Disney is not giving enough consideration to. They did not give enough consideration to the frustration that it causes for a guest when you are paying at that moment for something and you expect a result. And like that's different than when you pay for a trip and you can't get what you want 60 days in advance. You've kind of gotten over that by the time you get down there. You're not over it when you have to wake up at 7 a.m. and you're trying to buy something at point of purchase. And you're either not getting what it is that you felt like you were going to get, if it's a time or a ride, or it's just flat out not working. Those are two different experiences. I don't like that so much has to be done on the day, but like it's just the number of dead ends that people meet, and it impacts all guests.
It's not good.
I talked to when we were down there a couple weeks ago. I talked to multiple people about their experience with it, each kind of having different frustrations with the service. And it's the product you get when you were promised a certain amount of money for the program, and it ended up being about 30% of what was budgeted is what they ended up being able to give them to build this product. And this is what you end up with. You end up with confusing return times for when you can book your next Lightning Lane. You get dead ends for certain people based on the types of passes they have that conflict with their family. Like just crazy things that they could not really account for until it was in the wild. And those errors are still happening, and it's frustrating.
What amazes me is if they knew what this program was capable, or what it was built to do with the budget that they had. Like, I mean, you can pick out and be like, this is going to go wrong. This is going to go wrong. I mean, this following the same pattern as FastPass Plus with the wonderful Defunctland video that we saw about a month ago. I mean, they're already feeding the beast, right? They're adding parade viewing, Lightning Lane areas, meet and greets, or was it meet and greets? Phil, save me here.
Yeah.
Character greetings. Yeah. Yep. And now you're basically giving somebody, charging them $15 a person per day to use this thing, and then they go home and say, well, I was able to go on, I don't know, a Splash Mountain and then use it to go see Mickey and Donald once or twice, right? Is that a really good value for your dollar? And I think it creates a negative feedback loop, especially for the stress, right? Like you stressed enough by paying the exorbitant amount of money it costs to stay on property. You bought how many dollars worth of tickets for your family, for a family of 4 or 5, to go every single day. And now all of a sudden you're like, all right, I got to plan. If I don't get into the get Genie Plus to get what I wanted and all this other stuff by 7, your day's already started off pretty bad. And you're in Florida weather, right? So you're hot, you're sweaty, you're having this bad experience. So increased stress. So how do you think, just from like the Twitter sphere and kind of your own personal experience, this like kind of negative, I don't know, feedback loop kind of happens? So you go, you try chasing your normal vacation that you've had in the past. You go, you have bad experiences. You're willing to try it, right? So you're willing to try Genie Plus. You're not too upset about it yet. You have some of these negative effects. How does that affect then you relating that story to others and then booking your next trip? How do you see that for the average person?
I mean, I think one point I just want to make on Genie Plus, I think the price is too low. Honestly.
I agree.
And I think that has caused a lot of these problems. But I think what is happening is I think the average person is coming away saying, you have to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking like families with kids, they're going to go and they're going to tell their neighbor, you're going to want to get it. It's a little frustrating. Sometimes it doesn't work. Or, we couldn't understand why we weren't able to book another lightning lane because of some weird thing that happened during the day.
Mm-hmm.
If you cancel one or whatever, I have so many stories about that and what's going on the back end with the system with that. But like, I think people will have those 1 or 2 instances, hopefully not more, where it just doesn't work like it should, but they'll end up saying, ultimately though, the satisfaction of being able to skip some lines is worth it. It's worth the $15. Just pay it. I think them keeping the price so low was partially because they knew it wasn't going to be a perfect product, but now they're in this spot where you've made it so cheap that so many people are buying it that even more people are buying it than Disney expected to buy it. I mean,
Could you put a factor on that?
Do what?
Can you put a factor that like twice as many people than they expected, or 3 times, or 50% more?
I'll have to dig and see if I can get a good estimate on it. But I know that I had some conversations with people on the Genie team, and I should go back and find the exact questions I was asking them, hypotheticals about like, what's going to happen if. I mean, I can remember asking them saying, what if I go to book an attraction and the earliest time I can get is like 5:00? Let's talk about the 2-hour window type thing. And they were like, we don't really see a scenario where that's going to be the case. And now
Okay.
It's like, I mean, for what the Slinky Dog attraction, it's like, I think it's
every day.
gone.
That's how it is. Yeah.
It's gone.
Yep.
So like just those comments alone show that they were not expecting there to be as many people purchasing it.
Did they expect people to be waking up at 7:00 and doing that's the first thing they do when they wake up, or were they expecting people to like throughout the morning before arriving to the park, kind of casually doing it?
So the 7:00 thing is not. The 7:00 thing was at World was done out of necessity because they did not have the ability to gate it to resort guests. And I'll just say, I don't think that was known initially. I think that was something that was discovered later. So the idea that everyone at 7:00 could book a lightning lane, they have the individual lightning lanes is a different system, different process, not system, but it's a different process because it's a pay flow.
Mm-hmm.
And they can gate that to resort guests. They could not gate the Genie Plus lightning lane the way it was built. And from what I understand, that was not exactly known until maybe a little bit later in the process. So at what point they started thinking about that, I'm not sure. I do think when they announced it that they were getting closer to knowing that the 7 a.m. thing was going to be a thing for everyone. Getting on at 7 and booking the first attraction. It's a lot of the reason why they got rid of the virtual queue, load on the system, because they knew that 7 a.m. was going to need to be a Genie Plus time and not
okay.
virtual
That's
queue.
interesting. Okay.
But I don't know at what point they were kind of like, all right, yeah, we're opening up to all guests at 7 a.m. We need to make sure that our systems can support every single guest going in a park at World, possibly doing the same thing at the same time. So
they originally wanted to make this for resort guests only, and that's it?
I don't know. I don't know either way. I just know that there was later on, it was kind of like, what is the perk we're going to give resort guests? We should give them this. Actually, no, we can't do that. The system doesn't work that way. You can't.
Sure.
The way they gate it for individual, you cannot do for Genie Plus. You just can't. With the way they built it, they might add that later. It'll feel weird to pull it back, but I guess they could always do that if they need to incentivize resort guests booking or people booking on property. But it was a bit of a surprise, I think, from what I've heard. So,
do you think they want to move away from loading up on the servers at 7 a.m., or are they going to try to spread that out? Or are they happy with that, you think?
I don't know. I can't figure out the Disney IT situation. I mean, and this is like
I don't think they can either.
After trying to figure it out. I mean, Land is worse, in my opinion, than World, with their inability to understand, like, just putting tickets on sale at Disneyland brings down like the entire Southern California infrastructures, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. World has better figured it out, but still, I would love for someone at some point to tell me, like, give me a one sentence answer to why there's such gridlock and improving the IT situation, because I've talked to people that should know, and they're just like, I don't know. I mean, know what the deal is.
They are one of the largest entertainment companies in the world with a massive streaming service. You think they can have some good IT,
especially when they're
engineers
just pushing people to have to use their phones, and it's like you have to use the technology, yet it doesn't work all that well.
And the thing that gets me on like the Genie Plus product, the whole, like, when they were developing it, they were given, like 30-40% of the budget they asked for it. Like, it's generating a ton of revenue every day. Like, if they cannot get approval for
what they need,
100% budget of what they need for something that is making a ton of money for them, then they can't get the approval to just fix basic stuff. Like,
that's true.
So, and things like, more capacity for virtual queue, and that was a non-additional revenue generating thing, was impossible.
Yeah.
And even for this, it's like one of the blogs did the math one day on like how much revenue is being generated just from Genie Plus if they sell so many thousand a day, and it was an incredible amount of revenue for parks, and they still could not get 30-40% of what they needed to build a functioning product.
Well, I mean, they found a way to increase ticket prices by 12% with just adding $15 basically on everybody's ticket that wants to get one of these.
And mid-February is coming up pretty soon here.
Yes. So. Get out your wallets.
This is probably a prediction to go wrong, but if I were making, if there was a silly betting pool, I would put money on the annual passes possibly returning middle of February with that ticket price increase and the APs increased versus what they basically just announced. So
yeah,
wouldn't surprise me. I mean, would you see like a future state of like discounted packages, right? So we don't have the dining plan stuff. I mean, you got your typical fun in the sun or type of packages where you get a couple bucks off your room. Do you think that they would add Genie to packages? Because that's what I predicted. Like once they need to start handing out, discounts to get people in the parks. Not that they have that trouble right now, but 6 months, 8 months, 10 months from now.
I think so, but I would say not until after the 50th, probably. I think, I mean, I don't know. I guess it could slow down towards the end of the 50th, but I don't see it doing that. I think they have enough opening and they've stretched enough out over the length of 50th. They'll be fine. But maybe after 50th, they might start offering that as the reason to book in off season is because you get free Genie on your package. It gets tricky when the one thing that I think everyone should give Disney credit for, and I don't know if people are giving them enough credit for, they are still limiting the number. They're not truly cutting it off, but it's not, with the exception of a few weeks, I would say it's not overloading Lightning Lane into a way that it's unbearable. So like they're not cutting off sales of Genie Plus, but they're not adding so many times for Buzz Lightyear that true. It looks like it did before with FastPass Plus. I don't know what the percentages are. I don't know how they're managing to do that, but with the exception of, I think it was Thanksgiving. Christmas wasn't as bad, but
Thanksgiving was the really bad week. I remember seeing really bad lines and stuff.
And maybe they learned something from that. I don't know, but like even when we were down there were attractions that didn't have any more Lightning Lanes for the rest of the day, and the Lightning lines were still fast. Like it's not like they're just saying, well, I'll just throw 50% more throughout the day in each time slot. It doesn't seem that they're doing that yet, but as soon as you say that, they're going to start doing it. So,
well, I mean, that's the one thing that everybody's experience tells you. Whether some people don't mind the complications of going through waking up at 7, the whole stuff, but no one has ever complained that they waited for an hour on a Lightning Lane that they actually booked. Once they had it and they kind of went in, the experience has been very smooth, and once it was all done, it was very satisfactory. They were very happy that they had it, which I guess, if you get a couple of those in a day, you might have an overall positive experience with the system, and you might feel like, I got my $15 worth out of this. What about for all the parks down at World? Would you recommend Genie for anything else other than maybe Magic Kingdom?
Man, I'm trying to think. I don't think we used it anywhere else for that reason. I couldn't justify even trying it. We used it for 2 days. I mean, we ended up using it at Epcot, but it's because we were at Magic in the morning. But like, I think you have to have Magic either as your one park or you're planning to hop there to really get your money's worth out of it. Otherwise, what we did and what I would recommend is stick with the individual Lightning Lane. And after having been down there, I kind of wish they had just done the individual route and just not done Genie Plus and just made everything a la carte. Like, it was so nice. It was so nice to be able to book. I mean, I've got a 7-year-old son. He still thinks Space Mountain is like the best roller coaster on the planet. So like, it is probably not the best $7 you're going to spend to skip that, but we spent it, and it was worth every penny for us because walked right. I mean, we were able to book it like we were on People Mover. We were able to book it 40 minutes out. We got off People Mover. We went and used a Buzz Lightyear Lightning Lane, and then we were able to go walk into Space Mountain. I think if it was a la carte, then you would have fewer people just booking things to book stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's always the problem with Genie Plus and with FastPass, that people were booking it just because they could.
Yep.
And then that leads to them having to put more things on it. Whereas if it was just the individual attractions, you probably wouldn't need to put character meets and parades and stuff like that on it.
But like, I don't love the idea of having like teacups being an a la carte, but like, if you could charge $2 to skip the line for teacups,
something dynamic, right?
Make it dynamic, and also it would make the standby line so much faster.
Yeah.
For those rides, what happens with those rides is, like you just said, for the meet and greets and all the other things, people just book it
because they see it.
The standby line is, really
not moving,
really hard to manage as a family. As long as the line is moving, everyone's good with. Not everyone. Most people are good with waiting as long as you're moving. But those attractions that end up with that Genie bottleneck, even if it's not a lot, it still adds up. And I don't know. It is not what I would have thought, thinking that I wish it was all a la carte. But after doing it in person, I'm like, you know what? This might have worked a lot better if they had just done that.
Just go back to the ticket books.
Yeah. I mean, the a la carte plan was the plan at World before they decided to do the Genie Plus bundle. And that's why they ended up with so many different terms.
Which is a disaster.
It felt like there were two plans, and that's what they were. I mean, it was like the Epcot for FastPass. They pushed the table together. Isn't that like the story?
The Future World and the World Showcase. And
I'll let everyone else, I guess I would say Future World was the Genie Plus, and the individual Lightning Lane was Showcase, because I like Showcase. But yeah, it's going to continue to get tweaked. From what I understand, there's still somehow, even though it's generating a ton of revenue, there's no money in the project to really make big improvements right now. But
no kidding.
I hope at some point there will be. So, yeah.
Phil, you and I had this conversation last year when this was all coming out. We were watching people use it. Get rid of the $15 thing, and if I had to build the system, it would be basically every ride has individual Lightning Lane that you could buy. They're limited to X amount per hour that makes it function. And if at the end of the hour or getting towards the end of the booking window, if there was still 90% available, the price starts dropping, just like Uber, right? It's like, the less crowded it is, it goes from $10 all the way down to $1. And at least they're getting $1 out of 30, 40 people. So I think that's how they would have done it. I was expecting that. I wasn't expecting like the two headliners in the park, basically, or the one headliner of the park gets the individual Lightning Lane, but I don't know. I guess that's what it is.
They should have just taken the toll pass system and just implemented it in the parks. Like the Easy Pass lane, it fluctuates at 5 during rush hour.
Yeah, like the HOV lane stuff.
Let's do it. Just tell put up on the board how much it's going to cost me at peak 4 o'clock in Magic Kingdom. I would have been good with that, but I don't know if I would have said the same thing a year ago. It definitely felt like my opinion changed once I was actually using it in the park and experiencing how much better the individual Lightning Lane experience was versus Genie Plus. But they'll keep making changes, hopefully. Big changes.
Well, the one positive sign was they took off some of the individual Lightnings and they put them into the general Genie Plus bundle during the Christmas season. I hope that data was good enough for them, because it sounded like they went off pretty smoothly and most people enjoyed their Genie Plus experience around the holidays. And I think that was one of the main drivers for that, I believe.
Well, and it's good just to see them try to adapt it or whatever, not just
Absolutely.
stick with the old thing. Yeah.
I want to take a little bit of a change of direction here, and just kind of get your media savvy kind of opinion on things. Because one of the things that I've noticed, and Phil and I talked about this last week on our mental health kind of episode, like get your anxiety level down about your Disney trip and stop being toxic on Twitter and social media about rising prices and the signs changing from purple to blue and going all nuts. And I see you roll your eyes. That was actually my reaction to that as well. For those of you listening at home, one of the things I'm noticing, whether it's to me, there's a lot of negative feedback loops going on. This is just the population of people that are into Disney, that are on Disney, on social 24/7 or throughout the year, that type of thing. Not your average family that wants to go to Disney World in their once in a lifetime because they're not paying attention to like Disney Food Blog or anybody else that puts out some good content. What I've noticing as Disney's offerings or new announcements have been getting less and less or non-existent. You're seeing more and more clickbaity kind of titles about a new ice cream cone or new merch or something else like that that's typically wouldn't be getting as much reaction out in the Twitterverse, but you're seeing more and more of it because it's just being flooded. These content creators are trying to find things to create content for. And I think it's creating a negative feedback loop because people are expecting more stuff because of the 50th, some interesting things. And I think we're getting that, Phil, because this is going to be our topic for the next thing, what people are talking about this week. But do you see that happening right now with all the different content creators, the vloggers, the writers, or what have you, that they're just kind of hunting for new stuff to write about, and it's kind of, I guess, infecting the rest of the ecosystem, I guess, if you want to give a term for it?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of copycat. The negative feedback loop part on seeing something, seeing something and perceive that it is doing well, I think is turning back into crap content from some of these people or outlets. And I mean, I hate it. I hate it so much. It's one of the reasons why I honestly spend a lot less time on Twitter than I used to, because it just seems like it's I'm not like anti-negativity, but it's just, if you're mad and outraged about everything, then what are we doing? You know, if it's a 4-alarm fire when they change the road signs, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you don't get to be upset about World Showcase Lagoon and how awful it looks, and then get upset about the road signs, and then think that that your readers and people are going to be able to not know that these are two different types of anger. You know, like, you have to. We got to allow things to change. We also just, people need to take a breath. And I mean, I talked to people that I respect a lot who were very upset about the road signs, and I'm just like, maybe something's wrong with me. Like, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not, as connected to all of these things that seemingly shouldn't matter. But you've got there's a good bit of money in the Disney fan blog world, and the ones that do really well, and they are on property every day, driving around, seeing things from across the parking lot through the trees with binoculars, and there is an appetite for it. There are a lot of fans that feel like there should be something every day, when, as the guy who can remember reading All Ears when it was Deb and she would post like a weekly update.
Yeah.
It was actual like updates around property. And I'm not disparaging any of them. Like they do a good job knowing and using the API to find every single menu tweak or price change. They do a good job with that. But Disney's prices are going to keep going up. If we're going to write about it every time the prices go up, then it's going to constantly be this negativity, because that's just the way it's going to be. But
the one thing that I think frustrates a lot of people is, in our Discord server, we have a news feed. We had two. We just changed it. We had WDWNT and Blog Mickey that just kind of just regurgitates whatever the feed right into the channel. And there could be some days where it's like, here's a new purse, here's a new ice cream cone, here's a new donut, here's another new donut, and it just goes through. I'm like, can't we just like summarize this in like a weekly new food? Like, I would read one article about all the new food, maybe once every other week. And I think where people are expecting Disney to be putting out some cool stuff, everybody's waiting for Tron. Wait here, let me just pause for a moment. When is Tron opening? What's your prediction? When is the first guest going to be able to walk underneath that canopy that's taking forever and ride that? You want to give me a quarter?
I'm trying to think about. It's been a long time since I asked someone who might be able to give me an idea, and I'm trying to think what the latest time frame. I mean, I would say there was a time not too long ago where I would have said end of this year, but I would probably put my money on May of next year.
I think a lot of people are starting to say that too, Phil.
Okay.
Yeah, I was always thinking Q1 just because I think they said it would open as part of the 50th, which the 18 months ends the end of March 23. So I was thinking it would open by then, but
that's a good point.
But
you
yeah,
don't have to though.
I know they could always extend the 50th or whatever. But.
Or so you never read that. It was not coming for the 50th.
I will say Disney's World is about to really pick up speed on reopening of things that people are waiting on. I think we'll see Fantasmic fairly soon.
Yeah, we saw pictures with the water filled there, so that seems.
Was BioReconstruct.
But yeah, he had that.
He was on it. Yeah, I tend to catch up on Mondays from weekends, so I need to go check that out. But yeah, I think Fantasmic Disneyland is supposed to open spring, and I think it's possible that Disney could be trying to do like a same day both coast Fantasmic return.
That'd be exciting.
And I hope that's the case because I think Disneyland is a lot closer, or at least was as of a couple weeks ago. But that might explain why World has kind of increased the pace for getting Fantasmic ready to go. So, I think World is going to start speeding up the return of things, but I think Tron, they would really maybe like to push that into another financial quarter for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
But if we get it before the end of the year, I will be so happy to be wrong.
Yeah.
So
even Q4 though this year of calendar would be the next Disney fiscal year. So I guess there would be some benefit to that, but so I think it's either then or the next, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean that's
your point, Jason, though, when we're getting daily posts of like this section of the canopy got done today. Like it just feels like it's taking forever when you only like every day you're getting an update about this screw and that screw. Whereas if we only heard it weekly or monthly, it might not feel as bad.
Well, that and the other prediction I was going to ask you, Scott, is when do we get the railroad back in Magic Kingdom? Do you think that's this year?
I think we could get the railroad back before. Yeah, I think we'll get railroad back before the end of the year. Yeah.
What was our prediction, Phil, on our show? Was railroad Q4 this year? Tron
we said
Q1, 2 next year.
Exactly. That was our prediction. Yeah.
Okay, so hopping back because that was I screwed up your perfect segue that you gave me for the last thing that we're going to talk about before we head on out is everybody this week is talking about the return of a lot of stuff or the mention of return, right? So you have the festival, the Fantasy Parade that's coming back on March. You have more cavalcades that are coming back at the end of February. Just a lot more kinetic energy to the parks. A lot of different, just things that are happening. Is this where Disney wanted to be for the 50th, do you think? And they just had to slow play a lot of this stuff? Or is this kind of, they're finally just going to just do this because the time is right? Is it a financial thing? What do you think their motivation is for it happening right now?
I think a lot of it is financial. I mean, I think a lot of it is the super nerdy, financial smart people that were able to say, like, if we do this at this time, then we can write off this on this court and all of the stuff that I don't understand and won't even pretend. Probably what I just said made no sense to people who know how this works. But I think that influenced a lot of what Disney was doing, because the crowds have justified bringing back Festival of Fantasy Parade for a long time. Nothing about any of the distancing, nothing has justified them not bringing it back before now. And I've said such to Disney, and they've told me that I'm wrong, and we've had very nice conversations about it. But there's nothing other than the money part of it.
Yeah.
That has justified them slow rolling a lot of the stuff. So I think they were able to cut certain corners, not bringing trams back to all 4 parks
right.
is embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing.
Incredibly
and everyone at Disney knows it.
Yeah.
But it's just like one of those line items that they're able to say, we can save X by not doing it. We don't have to do it, so we're not going to do it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is this a Chapek thing, or is it, or an Eisner thing, or is this what Disney would have done anyway?
It's not Chapek. It's not anyone. I mean, it's what a company beholden to shareholders are going to do when they can.
Corporate. Yep.
People point to Universal, say Universal is doing things. They're spending more money. They are building another park, but I would just say, like, in 10 years, unless they do something weird with their parks, in 10 years, Universal is going to be doing the same stuff. They're going to be in my opinion, they're going to be just as cheap. They have to spend right now. They're a little bit of an upstart. Disney's not. They don't have to do it as much. And they are able to, everyone's got to meet their X percentage growth quota. And that is their focus, and not so much on the things that we might want them to be focusing on. And that allows them to not bring back trams at 3 of their 4 parks for who knows how long. I mean, when they announced that, it was like throughout 2022. It's like, what? Like,
it's like 1 per quarter or something. It's bizarre.
Like, thank you. I thank you so much for this tidbit of information, a tram, and you commit to an entire 12-month rollout of trams.
With a fancy video.
I won't even get started on that silly. I mean, that's just, that was a major disconnect, in my opinion. So Disney's going to start, the rate will feel like they are picking it up, and I think they are. Some of the stuff should have been done a while ago, but at least we're getting it. At least it is coming back. I mean, I think there was a while where people were saying Fantasmic was never going to come back because of the state of the lagoon. Like, people were speculating if it was dead forever. It's not. It's coming. It is coming back.
I do recall some posts. I think that even just Steamboat Willie, it seemed like it needed more work than maybe they thought it did. So that was leading to some of those thoughts.
I mean, there were people who usually know what they're talking about telling me that's what, like, internally cast were being told, is that it may not return, that it was, up in the air or something like that, enough for people to think that it may not make its way back. But it's coming back, and that's, I guess we have to be grateful for some of these things, even though it's taken a long time, that we do at least get to see them return.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't, during all of the closure stuff, when Chapek was talking about all these things that they learned about, how to operate the parks efficiently, and supposedly all the things they learned about the annual passes in California. And then they had to stop selling the passes in California. I don't know if they learned quite as much as they've said that they've learned when they were being super, super, super cheap, talking about the things that they were learning, and now they're bringing things back. I would love it, and I'm sure the Comeback Index would love it, if Disney at some point were just willing to say, like, okay, we're done. Like no more. Like, this is it. Like,
this is the present state of the parks.
This is it. Anything that has not come back up to this point is not returning. Like, they're never going to say that. But I would like that, because then we could actually take a look at what has happened over the last couple of years and say, what was actually learned? What did they figure out? Like, they obviously figured out Rivers of Light and the Primeval Whirl were not going to come back. That was like summer 21 during all of this when they announced those were closed permanently. Or was it 20? I can't remember.
Summer 20, we knew Rivers of Light was never coming back.
Yeah.
It's almost 2 years ago at this point. Whirl was a mystery up until maybe 8 months ago, Phil? 6 months ago?
Yeah, well, it always had the technical issues, and they're having trouble getting the parts or whatever. So I think they just eventually decided it wasn't worth it to keep like putting it together with duct tape.
And that's stroller parking, which is a better use of that piece
and
of property.
Two picnic tables. It's all good.
The picnic tables are.
But
fantastic.
it's like it's so unusual for them to say that type of stuff, like Rivers of Light. I mean, NBA experience, like for them to eat, like they could have just ridden this thing up until this point, and really no one would have asked. They could have used COVID for a long time for that to just sit, and them not have to take on any embarrassment for closing it so soon. But like, they were pretty proactive in closing that, and I'm sure there's some financial explanation for how they were able to write it off. Yeah, like I'm sure there's a story there, but I want more of those. I want more of them. I want them just to be like, okay, like, that's it. We're not bringing back anything else.
Well, I mean, you encapsulated it perfectly with you saying, was that 20 or is that 21? Because we've been going a year and a half now since it's reopened, and it seems like it's a haze of who knows how long everything's been.
In some ways it feels like 2 months, and in some ways it feels like 20 years. It's like
I was having a conversation today with someone about extra magic hours and how they functioned before COVID, and I was like, I have no idea. I don't even I can't remember pre-COVID times for that, because we were talking about, like, was a certain attraction available during the evening extra magic hours, and I'm like, and even like I was like looking through all the blogs, and I was having trouble even like finding information from 2018.
It's all buried.
It's all buried underneath 30 posts about the newest version of extra hours.
Yeah, I mean, one of the funny things is I had a trip planned. We were doing a big family reunion that I canceled. That was coming up in a couple of weeks. I've got some unvaccinated young ones at home, so we were like, hey, you know what? Let's not risk it at this point. But before we canceled it, I was trying to plan our days. I'm like, all right, we can go into the parks early. And I couldn't even I knew it was like a half hour before, but sometimes it's an hour before. Sometimes they open the parks earlier than any. I'm like, how do I plan for this to get maximum? Because I'm the guy that's going to maximize every minute of the day in the parks. And at least in the extra magic hours, you knew that it was right there on the calendar. You can kind of put it into your book and say, hey, I know the park's opening at 8 o'clock this morning, and that's what I'm going to do. Now everything's kind of like, whatever. Some cast members decide to open up the gates 20 minutes early. It just happens. So it is
a nice surprise when you're there, but it is really depressing when you have a family and you drag your kids out of bed to get there at what you think is rope drop, and you walk up and everyone's in the park. And you're like, come on, man. Like, I appreciate I don't have to wait in the line at the turnstile, but I would have loved to have known that you were going to open these gates even earlier than you advertised. But I mean, I know why they do it sometimes, but also I get the disappointment where you're like, I tried so hard. And
I got all three of my kids brushed their teeth out the door, and't been open for 3 hours already. What happened here? Why is it opening at 5 a.m.? I don't know. Last thing I have is I think it's interesting. So Encanto has basically hit the cultural zeitgeist with a storm. All these, what they have 3 songs now in the top 10 in Spotify, Phil, I think, right now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Scott, was Disney expecting Encanto to be this big of a hit?
Nope, not at all. I mean, maybe Disney, but World was not. World had the chance to do Encanto right from the beginning did not, because they didn't want to spend the money. And I've tweeted about this a few times, and it's funny because there's people that are saying like, well, it's only been 2 months or what, defending Disney, when I've literally had the conversations with Disney and they know it's a problem. They know it's a problem. They're trying to fix it. There's a fix. They're going to have some fixes for it, but it's just funny that some people are like, oh, don't criticize them. And Disney's literally like scrambling behind the scenes to try to budget and have some type of presence that can be recognized when you have a cultural hit in the movie, and just the movie and the music, probably more the music.
Yep.
But it's crazy that you go right now during all of this and there's nothing. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a photo op at Epcot. It could be a cardboard cutout and it would be more than what they have right now. Like that is not what I would say is a great solution, but they don't even have that. And
no.
It boggles my mind to go down there for a week and for all of the chatter about a company to be about this thing that has no presence at what is known as the center of that company, which is Walt Disney World.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing. It's crazy.
It's like the early 90s with like the Little Mermaid all over again, where you have this massive success and they're just scrambling for years to get something into the parks. Now with technology, it should be so much easier, right? You can have a cavalcade with something. It doesn't even have to have live characters. You could just have like a speaker blasting out music as it drives around the park.
I was just say they have the stage and stuff with what Flower and Garden coming up, having a topiary and some people doing sing-alongs or something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big thing. But
the fact that they announced Flower and Garden and they don't have a topiary for the if people have seen it, the Isabella character who literally
grows flowers,
manifests flowers. And
yes.
In the movie, there are screenshots of her as a topiary. The fact that they don't have that, I know that the topiary stuff is planned months in advance. I know that, but
you could find somebody to carve up a bush, right?
Somebody could get that to work, right?
Like even if they couldn't get a topiary, like I don't like anything would be recognized and appreciated in this moment. It won't be 6 months from now, and that's when they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what drives me insane, because they could do it now and get credit for something that's not as good. In 6 months, they're going to do something not as good, and they've already missed the moment. And that's it. Just, I know it's what happens at a company as big as Disney when you have everything has to go on, a 20-person approval committee, and all it takes is one person to say like, nah, and then everyone's like, okay, we just won't do it. I don't want to be the person to say,
mind.
It's not worth fighting for it.
I'm not going to stick my neck out last September and say we should go ahead and put money aside for this. They're not going to do that. They'll just be like, it's easier to say no, so we'll just say no. And as a person who likes this company, I wish that they were able to take more credit for some of the stuff that they do that's culturally a huge success.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Absolutely.
So
my kids listen to that music constantly in the house. And I'm absolutely, we watched the movie, kids really enjoyed it. And now all of a sudden my youngest, who just turned 4, watches either Encanto or Moana at least every single chance I let her sit there and watch TV for longer than 20 minutes. And if anything, Disney should be applauded for the last 2 major movies that they released of Moana and Encanto having amazing soundtracks. And which really boggled my mind when I'm going to mispronounce Raya, or is it Raya or Raya, whatever, the movie had no music to it.
Yeah, it's Raya. That was strange, but
it
was a very different movie. But lack of music definitely stood out in that one. I mean, I think it still did okay, but I think Encanto proves better than maybe any movie ever for Disney. I really think it probably proves it more than any movie ever. Maybe Lion King, that music can like continue a film's like moment.
Mm-hmm.
Frozen, I feel like Frozen, the music, the one song,
Yep.
let it live for longer than it maybe should have. But like the Encanto part of it, it's the music is like bringing people into the movie.
Yeah.
Frozen, like Let It Go, just stuck in every kid's head forever, and they just sang it. Like Encanto is like the gate for people to be like, "Oh, I should check this film out." And if you think about this Encanto without the music, like Araya, I mean, it would never
No.
have would have ever talked about it.
No, absolutely not.
In another film would have been like Luca, which I liked Luca a lot, but Luca, you watched it and it was really good, but like the
you go about your day.
There, yeah, the revisiting is not there. But yeah, when the song is being played over and over, multiple songs are being played over and over everywhere you look online right now. It's just this constant, like, you're constantly going to finally break people and they're going to say, all right, fine. My mom, like 3 days ago, was like, no one would watch it with me here. So I finally just watched it by myself. It was amazing. So,
yeah.
Like that's what the music can do, is it just extends the life.
Disney should know that, right?
Well, I think they do. It's just like, they're just
slow. I mean, even Frozen though, they were late to getting merchandise and stuff like that. So it's not like a unique to Encanto. It's just,
but you would think that Frozen, they had the characters out before the movie came out. Like, all they would have had to do is say, you know what? If we don't want Disney Plus, the Disney Plus side of the company, to be pissed at us or angry at us, then we should at least have a character in the parks. And like, then they could have taken credit for not even doing it the right way.
Yeah.
But like, they didn't even, I don't even think they had the conversations. It was just like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, even they have this new cavalcade, right? With 30 characters, just have Mirabelle be one of them on the float. You're like, you don't have to build anything for that or whatever.
You just need a smaller woman that can put on some glasses and put a bow in her hair and kind of dance around. I mean, it's not like it's like an amazingly difficult costume or character that you have to kind of. She wears pants and a shirt, and not even an expensive, big, complicated dress, right? It should be kind of simple. And what amazes me as a, project manager / engineer, I'm always thinking logically about projects, and I'm just amazed that when, all right, we're going to release a large movie. We spent all this money on music and animation, and we put it all together and marketing. How come there is not an executed plan for the parks? Like at inception, like we're going to make this movie. This is what's going to happen for the parks, and you just get primed for it. Even if you don't build it, but have that plan in place to kind of pull the trigger. And it very much confuses me when you have a multi-billion-dollar entertainment company. They got the entertainment part incorrect in outside the animation studio. And not to harp on the point even more. All right,
I would like to for a moment, if you don't mind, just to make another point. The thing that gets me about Encanto, and I know originally it was released in theaters, it wasn't on Disney Plus, but like it came out the same month that they had Disney Plus Day at Walt Disney World. Like,
that's right.
If they could have just taken 10% of the budget for that day and committed it to this major motion picture that's coming out from the company 3 weeks after that, so many things could have been saved. And last point I'll make, because I don't really feel that strongly about the Encanto thing, but it's the larger point that I've made a dozen times that bothers me about certain things that happen in the parks. Things like the barges in the World Showcase Lagoon. Things like this. Things that I feel like should be very, very easy decisions, easy conversations that are apparently not. The daytime fountain situation in the World Showcase Lagoon. Like, the fact that the complicated way that the company works, and you end up with things like that, it more concerns me about the process that these things are going through. And it also confuses me when you have things like points of light on Spaceship Earth that somehow make it, and they look amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, are these going through the same channels? The answer is they're not. And at some point, Disney is going to figure out why that is the case. And until they do, I'm going to just keep being frustrated about it because these things are not going through the same people that should be seeing everything, talking about it, and knowing what's happening.
There's no cohesion.
And the good decisions are going one way, the bad decisions are going another way. Anyway, it's kind of like every time I see something that fits what is this overall frustration with this example in Encanto, I kind of like zero in on it, and it's not, I'm not really personally willing to die on the Encanto hill. It's just the larger point.
It's an example of it. Yeah.
Like, how is this possible? Like, your CEO is obsessed with that part of the company, the film part of the company, the streaming part of the company, and you got nothing. How is that possible? So anyway.
Well, I mean that's one of the points in that, and we'll wrap up the show. Is Phil and I talked about this a couple weeks ago about how Chapek's now setting up people on the board at the heads of Imagineering and so forth. Like, so it's basically the old guard is being put in, leaving or retiring or forced to retire, whatever words you want to use. Are we finally going to see what Bob Chapek's Disney company or Disney Parks operations and whatever actually is? And he hasn't had time to actually do what he wanted to do because Iger had a 3-year going away tour, and he's finally free to do what he wants to do. And we should now wait another year for him to maybe potentially clean up what you're seeing here, or maybe not. But are we going to see a different direction with Disney in those regards?
I think the parks have been fully Chapek'd for the last 6 months. I think he really has had. He doesn't spend a lot of time worried or concerned about the parks, but I think what I would say top down last 6 months are really more of where he's had the control that he would want without the farewell tour and really some of the other people still just hanging around that were part of that group. I'm very in favor of Chapek getting all of the people in there that he thinks need to be in there, because then we get to see what it is. We get to see, he gets to be responsible, good or bad, for what is going to happen with the company. Iger and Josh get all the credit for everything. They somehow escape all responsibility for anything that happens that's bad in the parks.
We could have a whole show just on that aspect.
I don't understand it. There was nothing more awkward, and this being at a media event and seeing media professionals completely having a fan moment with Josh. It was very strange.
I don't understand that either. I don't get it.
Very weird. And it's never been that way with Chapek. He's never wanted that. He's never had the looks for it. That's just the way it is, I guess. But I think Chapek getting all of the people that he wants in the company really make him more responsible. He's not able, anything that's really happened up until Iger, I think someone sent me today, he's actually changed his Twitter bio now. It says,
finally,
former Disney CEO or whatever. Now that he's officially changed his Twitter bio, Chapek is on the hook for it, good or bad. He doesn't get to say, well, yeah, Iger's still hanging around. Everyone's still going to listen to him until he's gone. It's all him now. And
that goes to your earlier point where you want Disney to say, this is Disney World right now. This is what you're going to get. and we're done, right? Because we've been in a wishy-washy world for the last 2 years, year and a half, and I want Chapek to be saying, this is my company now, this is my vision and my direction, so we know what that means. I want Disney World to be like, okay, here's the money that we're going to spend, and this is where we're going to go, so we can get back to whatever sense of normal, so we're not A, waiting for new things, and B, waiting for old things to come back, right? Because that's just two spaces. It's hard to be, whether you're in media, you're doing a podcast, whether you're a vlogger, like you're balancing these two things, expectations for new and expectations of, I want my vacation back from 2019. I'm still chasing that tail, so to speak, and being disappointed by all of it.
I would really love to turn off the website alert I have on the dining plan page for when they update that to say that it's coming back. Like that being an example of something that I would love for Disney to just come out and say,
it's gone.
It's not going to return in the foreseeable future. Like, maybe it'll return one day, but they've just kind of left it out there. At one point, they kind of hinted that it would come back at some point, but like the time frame they said it might come back has passed. So that is just like one of the many things that I would love for them to just say, like, yeah, that is not a thing anymore. We don't. Like, our finances don't work that way anymore, where we can do a dining plan. I don't expect it, but I would sure appreciate it, because it would allow us to move on a little bit.
Well, I think
you see a lot of people now just still saying, like, when's the dining plan coming back? I'm not booking my next trip until it's back. And to your point, I bet they would like to know, like, it's not coming back. Like, and that's just obviously one example. There's other things, but there's people waiting for these things.
Or, character sightings are the new character meet and greets. You're not going to be able to hug your character anymore. You're not going to be able to get a character autograph anymore. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but like, if that's what's going on, just say it. I don't think there's a whole lot of there's nothing in any of the, unless I'm wrong, there's nothing in any of the CDC guidance currently that keeps me from hugging Mickey. That's just Disney saying, that's what we're not doing anymore. And so, like, I think we might be needing to get to the point where is the traditional character meet and greet coming back, or is this the new character interaction? Personally, I like the way it is now. I don't want to go back to that, but I know that there's plenty, if not the majority of people, that do want to see it go back to that way. And like you said, might be waiting to book their trip until they know that they can get their Christmas card photo hugging Mickey. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, a little bit of ancillary kind of or evidence is, my wife's like, 2 months ago, should we be doing this trip because we can't see the characters, we can't do this, and like, I don't know if that's ever coming back. So why have the anxiety of fear of missing out on something that might be coming back? Like, for example, the parades and stuff like that. It took a little bit of the sting of canceling my trip, because I'm like, we would just be missing all this cool stuff that's coming back. So when we finally, whenever we rebook it, hey, that stuff's going to be back there again. Because if we went on this trip, we probably wouldn't be back down there for a full 2-week-long trip for another year and a half, 2 years. So now, hey, if we go in the fall this year or something, hey, we've got it back now. It feels good. So to that larger point, Disney really needs to, stop using the cover of whatever and just say, this is the new normal, this is the new baseline, let's move forward with just new stuff and all the other kind of plans. And hopefully, with Chapek everything being Chapek mode right now, hopefully maybe that kind of peters out by the end of the summer. If it's ever going to be like, this is it, it's got to be by the end of the summer. I think that's when we'll get our wishes. All right, Phil. I did not say today this might be a short episode, because I knew we would probably get long when you have 3 people that love Disney chatting about it. Scott, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your insight and some of your opinions with the things that we were talking about today. Anything that you want to put out there where they can find you outside of your Twitter handle, which is at Scott Gustin, Gustin. Anything you want to put out there?
Just find me on Twitter. I'm not going to be interesting or even present anywhere else. So, find me there. DMs are open always for the most small questions or things that you want me to try to chase down, I can always find someone to ask. Can't promise that I can get an answer, but find me there. That's where I am.
Awesome. No, again, you were great to come on. And Phil, where can they find us on social media? If you could fill them.
Yes, so they can find us on Twitter, but also everywhere at the DBC Pod. So we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course our Discord server.
Excellent. Well, next week we'll go back to a normal show format. We'll have attractionality. We weren't going to have one this week anyway. And positive stories. So we have one already ready up for next week. That being said, everybody, thank you for watching and listening. Make sure you hit those like and subscribes, please. I hate that I have to say that. We're not even monetized, Phil, but I like when numbers get bigger. That being said, have a great week, everyone. Take care.
Take care, everyone.